The poor woman helped a lost girl in the mall and ended up meeting her billionaire father. Elena let out a sigh of relief as she passed through the automatic doors of the mall. The air conditioning wrapped around her like a hug, pushing away the suffocating July heat that seemed to cling to her skin. Her legs still ached from the double shift at the Red Cup diner, but today finally was her day off. A whole day just for me, she murmured to herself, adjusting the faux leather bag on her shoulder. Her blonde hair was tied back in a simple ponytail, and she wore a light blue t-shirt, jeans, and comfortable sneakers. No red and white uniform, no forced smiles, no, "Can I take your order?" The mall was busy for a Tuesday. Families strolled from store to store, teenagers formed loud groups near the food court, and executives in suits walked hurriedly, talking on their cell phones. Elena smiled. There was something comforting about being in the middle of a crowd and, at the same time, completely alone. Her eyes scanned the storefronts. A new bookstore had opened on the second floor, and Elena planned to spend part of her week's tips on a few novels, maybe a coffee afterward. Small luxuries she rarely allowed herself. It was as she was going up the escalator that she heard it. At first, it was just another noise among many. The ambient music, conversations, the mechanical hum of the stairs. But there was something in that sound that made Elena pause mid-step. A child's cry. It wasn't a cry of a tantrum or tiredness. It was the kind of cry Elena recognized well from her own childhood, the cry of someone who is lost. Elena looked around, trying to locate the source of the sound. Near a decorative fountain, a small figure caught her eye. A little girl, no more than 5 years old, was sitting on the edge of the fountain, her small shoulders trembling with each sob. Her blonde hair fell in messy curls across her face, and her eyes, Elena couldn't yet see the color, were red and swollen. In an instant, Elena forgot about the bookstore, the books, the coffee. She went back down the escalator and walked toward the girl. As she got closer, she noticed the brown teddy bear the child was clutching against her chest, as if it were her last friend in the world. "Hi," Elena said softly, stopping a few feet away so as not to startle the little one. "Are you okay?" The girl looked up, revealing crystal blue eyes now clouded with tears. Her face was red and damp, and she sniffled between sobs. I can't find my daddy," she managed to say between short breaths. Elena felt a pang in her chest. She quickly looked around, searching for a security guard or a mall employee, but no one was nearby. She slowly knelt until she was at the girl's level. "My name is Elena." "What's yours?" The girl hesitated for a moment, as if trying to remember if she was supposed to talk to strangers. "Sophie," she finally answered in a low voice. "And this is Mr. Cuddles." She slightly lifted the teddy bear. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Sophie. And a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Cuddles." Eleanor smiled, tilting her head in a nod to the bear. This brought a small smile to Sophie's face, which quickly vanished, replaced by more tears. "We were looking at toys and then my daddy was on the phone and—" Sophie couldn't finish, a new wave of crying taking over. "It's okay. We're going to find your daddy." Eleanor sat next to her on the edge of the fountain. "Are you thirsty?" "I have a small bottle of water in my bag." Sophie nodded. Eleanor took a small water bottle from her bag and offered it. The girl took a few sips, her sobs gradually subsiding. "Better?" "Yes," Sophie replied, handing the bottle back. "Thank you." "You're welcome. Now, Sophie, do you know your daddy's name? Or where you were before you got lost?" "My daddy is Spencer," she pronounced the name carefully. "We were at the toy store on the second floor, the one with the big train at the entrance." "Oh, I know which one," Elena nodded. "And your daddy was on the phone, is that right?" "Yes. He's always on the phone." There was a note of sadness in that simple sentence that made Elena's throat tighten. "He told me to look at the teddy bears, but then I saw a stuffed puppy on the other side and went there. And when I came back, I couldn't find him anymore." Eleanor put an arm around the girl's shoulders, feeling her tremble slightly. "And you decided to look for him?" Sophie nodded. "I thought I could find him by myself. I'm a big girl now, I'm 5. She held up her hand, showing 5 little fingers. "But then I didn't know where I was anymore." 5 years old is very big. Elena smiled, trying to convey confidence. But even big people need help sometimes. Look, here's what we'll do. I'll take you to a mall security guard and he'll help find your daddy. How does that sound? Sophie hugged her bear tighter. Will you stay with me? Something in the girl's gaze, fear, trust, hope, touched Elena deeply. In her job at the diner, she saw hundreds of faces every day, smiled at strangers, overheard fragments of other people's lives. But something about Sophie was different. Maybe it was the genuine vulnerability, or maybe it was just the protective instinct Elena always had. Yes, I'll stay with you until we find your dad, I promise. Sophie held out her little finger. Pinky promise? Elena linked her pinky with Sophie's. Pinky promise. At that moment, the girl seemed to relax a little. Her shoulders dropped, and she even allowed a small smile to appear at the corner of her lips. Mr. Cuddles is hungry, Sophie said suddenly, looking at her bear. He always gets hungry when he's scared. Elena pretended to consider the matter seriously. I see. And what does Mr. Cuddles like to eat when he's scared? Chocolate ice cream, Sophie replied promptly, a sparkle appearing in her blue eyes, with sprinkles. Elena couldn't help but laugh. Well, we'll have to ask your dad if Mr. Cuddles can have ice cream after we find him. But first, let's go find some help. She stood up and held out her hand. Sophie hesitated for a moment before placing her small hand in Eleanor's. The trust in that small gesture made Elena feel an even stronger wave of protectiveness. They began walking toward the information desk, which Elena had seen near the main entrance. Sophie's hand was warm and damp in hers, and the girl walked in silence, occasionally sniffling. Do you have kids? Sophie asked suddenly, looking up at her. The question caught Elena by surprise. No, I don't. Why not? The direct sincerity of children always surprised Elena. She thought for a moment, trying to find a simple answer to a complicated question. I guess I haven't found the right person to start a family with yet, she finally answered, but I like kids very much. Sophie seemed satisfied with the answer. My mommy went to heaven when I was a baby, she said with disconcerting naturalness. Daddy says she was beautiful and that I look like her. Eleanor's heart ached. I'm sure you do. You're a very beautiful little girl. Daddy has a picture of her on his desk. She smiles just like you. Before Elena could respond, a shout cut through the mall's chatter. Sophie! Sophie! The male voice was thick with panic. Sophie immediately let go of Elena's hand and turned toward the sound. Daddy! She screamed and started running. Elena saw a tall man making his way through the passers-by. He wore an impeccable dark suit, but his neat appearance contrasted with the look of desperation on his face. When he saw Sophie running toward him, the transformation was instantaneous, as if an invisible weight had been lifted from his shoulders. He knelt, opening his arms, and Sophie threw herself into them. The man hugged her tightly, closing his eyes for a moment, and Eleanor could see the relief wash over his body like a wave. Where were you? I was so worried, he said, pulling back just enough to look at his daughter's face. I told you to stay close, Sophie. I'm sorry, Daddy, Sophie mumbled, the tears returning. I saw a stuffed puppy. Don't do that again, understand? His voice was firm but not harsh. It was the tone of someone who had just experienced the worst fear a parent can feel. I thought... He couldn't finish the sentence. Instead, he hugged Sophie again, lifting her into his arms. It was only then that he noticed Elena standing a few feet away. Their eyes met, and Elena felt something strange pass through her. He had intense eyes, the same crystal blue as Sophie's, framed by expression lines that suggested both smiles and worries. His hair was dark blonde, with a few grey strands at his temples, combed back with gel. He was handsome, Elena had to admit, but there was something more in his gaze, a mixture of vulnerability and strength she rarely saw. She took care of me, Daddy, Sophie said, pointing to Elena. She gave me water and promised to help me find you. The man walked toward Elena, still carrying Sophie. Up close, she could see how tired he looked, as if he hadn't slept well in a long time. Thank you for taking care of her, he said, his voice filled with relief and gratitude. What's your name? Elena Reyes, she replied. suddenly feeling self-conscious about her casual appearance. "Your daughter is lovely. We were heading to the information desk when you found her." Spencer nodded, running his free hand through his hair in a gesture that seemed automatic. "I was on a call and—" He stopped, as if realizing he was about to make an excuse. "Anyway, thank you so much for looking after her." "It was nothing," Elena smiled. "Mr. Cuddles was a big help." Sophie held up the bear. "He's still hungry, Daddy." Spencer looked confusedly at his daughter and then at Eleanor, who shrugged with a smile. "Apparently, Mr. Cuddles gets hungry when he's scared, and the cure is chocolate ice cream with sprinkles." Spencer laughed, a short, genuine sound that completely transformed his tense face. For a moment, he looked years younger. "Is that so?" he asked, looking at Sophie, who nodded with all the seriousness in the world. "Well, I think after today we all deserve some ice cream." He looked back at Elena, and she noticed something shift in his eyes, a hesitation, followed by a decision. Would you like to join us?" he asked. "As a thank you for taking care of Sophie." The offer caught Eleanor off guard. She rarely received invitations like this, especially from men like Spencer, who clearly belonged to a different world than hers, a world of expensive suits and important meetings. "That's very kind, but you don't have to," she replied, feeling strangely shy. "I just did what anyone would do." "Please," Sophie intervened, her blue eyes pleading. "Mr. Cuddles likes you." Eleanor hesitated. Her plan for the day included books and solitude, not ice cream with strangers, no matter how charming they were. Besides, something in Spencer's gaze made her uncomfortable, not in a bad way, but in a way she wasn't prepared to deal with on a regular day off. "Maybe some other time," she said finally. "I have a few things to do today." A shadow of disappointment crossed Spencer's face, but he nodded, understanding. "Of course. I understand." An awkward silence fell over them, until Spencer cleared his throat. How can I find you? To thank you properly?" Eleanor hesitated again. There was something about this man, maybe the way he hugged his daughter, or the sincerity in his eyes, that made her want to trust him. But years of working in a diner had taught her to be cautious with strangers, especially those who seemed to have much more than she did. "I work at the Red Cup Diner," she finally replied, "on the corner of 5th and Madison." Sophie perked up. "The red restaurant with the big pies in the window?" Elena smiled. "That's the one. Can we go there, Daddy?" "Can we?" Spencer looked at his daughter and then at Elena, a small smile appearing at the corner of his mouth. "I think so," he said, "if Miss Elena doesn't mind." "I don't mind," Elena replied, surprising herself with her own sincerity. "Wednesday's pies are the best, especially the apple pie." "Apple pie on Wednesdays," Spencer repeated, as if making a mental note. "Jem will remember that." He extended his hand, and Eleanor shook it briefly. His palm was warm and firm, with subtle calluses that didn't match the executive image his suit suggested. "Thank you so much again," he said. "Really?" "You're welcome," Elena replied. "Take care, Sophie," she added, lightly stroking the girl's hair. "And take care of Mr. Cuddles, too." "I will," Sophie promised solemnly. "Bye, Elena." As Spencer walked away, carrying Sophie, Elena watched them for a moment. The girl waved over her father's shoulder, and Elena waved back, feeling a strange mix of emotions she couldn't name. Then, adjusting the bag on her shoulder, she turned and continued on her way to the bookstore. Her day off awaited her, just as she had planned. But somehow it now felt different, as if something had been added to the air she breathed, an unforeseen possibility, an unplanned path. As she went up the escalator, Elena found herself thinking about Wednesdays and apple pies, about crystal blue eyes and pinky promises, and for the first time in a long time, she wondered if maybe, just maybe, her world could expand a little more. The BMW glided silently through the city streets. Spencer kept his eyes fixed on the road, his hands gripping the steering wheel with unnecessary force. The car's interior was immaculate, beige leather, polished wood, state-of-the-art technology. The only sign of a child was the colorful cup holder in the back seat, where Sophie swung her legs, hugging Mr. Cuddles. The silence was heavy between them. Spencer adjusted the rearview mirror to see his daughter. She was looking out the window, her blue eyes reflecting the city lights. Her blonde hair was messy, and there were still tear streaks on her cheeks. "Are you okay, Princess?" he asked, his voice sounding strange after so much silence. Sophie nodded. "I am." Spencer cleared his throat. "Sophie, what happened today can't happen again. You made me very worried." "I'm sorry, Daddy," she murmured, looking down at the bear in her lap. "It's not just about being sorry," he continued, keeping his voice calm. "It's dangerous. You can't just wander off by yourself. But you were busy. You're always busy." The words hit Spencer like a punch to the gut. Simple, direct, devastating in their childlike honesty. He started, then stopped. What could he say? That he was closing a $50 million deal? That 3 months of negotiations depended on that phone call? None of that mattered to a 5-year-old girl who just wanted her father's attention. "I'm sorry," he said at last, surprising himself. Sophie looked up, clearly surprised. "It's okay, Daddy. Elena was nice to me." Her name, Elena. Spencer felt something strange hearing it from his daughter's lips. "She seems nice," he agreed. "It was very kind of her to take care of you. She has a pretty smile," Sophie continued, perking up. "And she talked to Mr. Cuddles like he was real." Spencer smiled slightly. "Did she?" "Yes, and she gave me water when I was crying, and held my hand, and made a pinky promise to stay with me until she found you." Each word was like a new weight on Spencer's conscience. While he was on the phone, ignoring the world around him, a stranger had offered his daughter what he couldn't. Total presence, complete attention. "I want to make a drawing for her," Sophie said suddenly. "Can I?" "A drawing?" "Yes. To thank her for taking care of me and Mr. Cuddles." Spencer nodded. "I think that's a great idea, Princess." "And can we take it to her at the Red Restaurant?" The question caught Spencer by surprise. His schedule was packed for the rest of the week. Meetings, conferences, international calls. As always. "Please, Daddy," Sophie insisted, sensing his hesitation. "Please, please, pretty please." Spencer sighed. "I'll try to find some time, okay? I can't promise." "You always say that," Sophie mumbled, the disappointment clear in her voice. She turned back to the window, hugging her bear tighter. The rest of the drive home was silent. When they arrived at the mansion on the outskirts of the city, the nanny, Mrs. Miller, was already waiting at the door. Her elderly face was tense with worry. "Thank God you're okay," she exclaimed. "I was so worried when Mr. Davis called." "I was the one who got lost," Sophie corrected, hopping out of the car. "Daddy was talking on the phone." Spencer exchanged an embarrassed look with Mrs. Miller, who quickly extended a hand to Sophie. "Come on, dear. Let's get you a bath and then have dinner. I made your favorite macaroni." "Can I draw first?" Sophie asked, looking at her father. "After your bath," Spencer replied, stroking his daughter's hair. "I'll be in the office. I have to finish a few things." The sparkle in Sophie's eyes dimmed, but she nodded. "Okay. I'll make the prettiest drawing in the whole world." As Mrs. Miller led Sophie inside, Spencer remained at the entrance, looking at the large house. It was spacious, elegant, with expensive furniture and artwork selected by a professional decorator, perfect in every detail. And yet, since Rebecca had died 3 years ago, it had never felt like a real home again. Spencer went inside and straight to his office. He closed the door, loosened his tie, and collapsed into his chair. His laptop blinked with dozens of unread emails. His phone buzzed with messages. The world didn't stop, didn't wait, didn't forgive delays. But for the first time in a long time, Spencer didn't care. Instead of opening his laptop, he swiveled his chair and looked at the photo on the shelf. Rebecca was smiling, holding a 2-year-old Sophie in her arms, both blonde, both with light-colored eyes, both radiant with life. "I'm doing everything wrong," he murmured to the picture. "I'm losing her, Becca. I'm losing our little girl." There was no answer, of course, just the ticking of the clock and the hum of the air conditioning. Spencer ran his hands over his face. Today had been a warning, an alarm. While he was on the phone, Sophie could have been taken, hurt. It was sheer luck that she had found someone like Elena. kind, caring, decent. A soft knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he said, turning his chair back to the desk. Sophie opened the door, already in her pajamas, her hair damp from her bath. In her hands, she held a sheet of paper. "I'm done, Daddy," she announced. "Want to see?" Spencer smiled. "Of course I do, Princess. Come here." Sophie approached, proudly holding out the paper. It was a drawing made with colored markers, in the typical style of a 5-year-old. There were 3 stick figures, a smaller one in the middle, wearing a purple dress, and 2 larger ones on either side, holding hands with the smaller figure. One of the larger figures, clearly a woman by the long yellow hair, wore a blue shirt. The other, a man, wore what looked like a black suit. Above them, a big yellow sun was smiling, and next to the smaller figure was a brown blob that Spencer assumed was Mr. Cuddles. "It's beautiful, Sophie," he said sincerely, feeling a lump in his throat. "Who are these people?" "This is me," she pointed to the smaller figure. "This is you," she pointed to the man in the suit. "And this is Elena," she pointed to the woman with yellow hair. Spencer looked at the drawing for a long moment, the 3 figures holding hands, smiling under the sun. A family, the kind of drawing children make when they feel safe, loved, happy. "We look happy," he commented quietly. "Yes," Sophie confirmed with simplicity. "Elena made me feel happy when I was sad." Spencer swallowed hard. "Are you sad often, Sophie?" The question came out before he could think. Sophie looked at him, her blue eyes full of a wisdom beyond her years. "Sometimes," she admitted, "when you're not here. Or when you are, but you're looking at your phone." Spencer felt as if something broke inside him. He pulled Sophie onto his lap and hugged her tightly, smelling the baby shampoo in her hair. "I'm so sorry, Princess," he whispered. "Daddy's going to try to do better, I promise." Sophie hugged him back. "It's okay, Daddy. I love you anyway." Those simple words almost made Spencer cry. How could he deserve so much unconditional love? "I love you too, more than anything," he said. "And tomorrow, we're going to take your drawing to Elena. I promise." Sophie pulled away, her eyes shining with excitement. "Really? Really? I'm going to cancel my lunch meeting." "Yay!" Sophie shouted, throwing her arms around her father's neck. "Elena is going to love it. She'll put it on her fridge, just like Mrs. Miller does with my drawings." Spencer laughed. "Maybe, if she has room on her fridge." "She does, I'm sure," Sophie stated. "And Mr. Cuddles is going too." After putting Sophie to bed, Spencer returned to his office and called his secretary. "I need you to cancel my lunch meeting tomorrow," he said, "and find out the exact address of the Red Cup Diner on the corner of 5th and Madison." "Mr. Davis? Are you talking about the lunch with the Japanese investors?" "That's the one. Reschedule for the next day." "But sir, they'll only be in town for—" "Marianne," Spencer interrupted her. "It's about my daughter. Please, just do as I ask." "Of course, Mr. Davis. I'll arrange everything immediately." Spencer hung up and looked at Sophie's drawing. The 3 stick figures smiled at him, holding hands under the yellow sun. Such a simple image, and yet so powerful. He carefully folded the drawing and put it in his briefcase. Tomorrow, they would go to the Red Cup Diner, and, for the first time in a long time, Spencer was looking forward to something that had nothing to do with business. The Red Cup Diner was exactly as the name suggested. A classic American diner with red vinyl booths, a white Formica countertop, and 50s-style decor. A large neon sign in the shape of a coffee cup blinked in the window, and the smell of fresh coffee and newly baked pies filled the air. When Spencer entered, holding Sophie's hand, he felt out of place. His Italian suit seemed absurdly formal among the casually dressed customers. A few curious glances turned his way, but they quickly looked away. "Daddy, look, it has a spinning stool," Sophie exclaimed, pointing to the counter. "I see that," Spencer smiled. "But we need to find Elena first." The diner was moderately full for lunchtime. Waitresses in red and white uniforms moved between the tables, carrying plates and taking orders. It was Sophie who saw her first. "There, Daddy, that's her." Spencer followed his daughter's gaze, and saw Elena coming out of the kitchen with a tray full of plates. She looked different in the diner uniform, but just as beautiful. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a low bun, and she moved with efficiency between the tables, smiling at the customers. Sophie let go of her father's hand and ran toward her before Spencer could stop her. "Elena! Elena!" Elena turned at the sound of her name, momentarily confused. When she saw Sophie, her eyes widened in surprise, and a genuine smile lit up her face. "Sophie, hello," she said, bending down to place the tray on an empty table and receive the girl's hug. "What a wonderful surprise." "We made a drawing for you," Sophie announced, bouncing with excitement. "And Mr. Cuddles came to see you too." Only then did Spencer notice that Sophie had brought the bear hidden under her little jacket. "Is that so?" Eleanor smiled, looking at the bear seriously. "Hello, Mr. Cuddles. I hope you're less scared today," Sophie laughed. "He's very happy to see you." Spencer approached, feeling strangely nervous. "I hope we're not interrupting your work." Eleanor looked up at him, blushing slightly. "Not at all. It's a pleasure to see you both." She looked around. "I just need to finish delivering these orders. You can sit at that table over there if you'd like to wait a bit." "Of course," Spencer nodded. "No rush." He guided Sophie to the indicated table. The girl was bouncing in her seat, unable to contain her excitement. "She was happy to see me, Daddy. Did you see—" "I saw, Princess," Spencer smiled. "And you brought Mr. Cuddles." "Of course. He really wanted to see Elena again." Spencer watched Elena as she finished serving the customers. There was a natural grace in her movements, a kindness in the way she interacted with people. When she smiled, she did it with her whole face, her eyes genuinely participating. After a few minutes, Elena approached their table, now without the tray and with a small notepad in her hand. "Welcome to the Red Cup Diner," she said with a smile that mixed professional formality and personal joy. "What can I get for you today?" "Elena!" Sophie exclaimed, jumping from her chair and pulling a folded paper from her pocket. "I made this for you." She held out the drawing, her eyes shining with expectation. Elena took the paper carefully, as if it were something precious, and unfolded it. Upon seeing the contents, her expression softened, and Spencer noticed her eyes became moist. "She insisted," he explained, feeling a strange lump in his throat. "She spent all night talking about how she wanted to thank you." Elena looked at the drawing for a long moment, gently running her finger over the stick figures. "This is the most beautiful thing anyone has ever made for me," she finally said, her voice a little choked up. She crouched down to Sophie's level. "Thank you so much, Sophie. I'll keep it forever." "Will you put it on your fridge?" Sophie asked hopefully. Elena laughed, discreetly wiping away a tear. "I will. Right in the center of the fridge, where everyone can see it." Sophie let out a little squeal of joy and hugged Elena again. Spencer watched the scene, feeling an emotion he couldn't name. There was something in the way Eleanor treated his daughter, with respect, kindness, and genuine attention, that touched him deeply. When Elena stood up, her eyes met Spencer's. In that brief moment, something passed between them, a silent understanding, a connection that went beyond words. And Spencer knew, with a certainty he hadn't felt since Rebecca died, that he wanted to get to know this woman better. 2 days later, the sky was already dark when Spencer pushed open the door of the Red Cup Diner. The bell above the entrance jingled, announcing his arrival. The diner was emptier than last time, a few lone customers reading newspapers, an elderly couple sharing a slice of pie, 3 teenagers sharing a portion of fries in the corner. This time, Spencer was alone. He wasn't wearing a suit, but he still looked out of place with his expensive button-down shirt and a watch that cost more than any employee's monthly salary. His face showed the fatigue of a long workday, with faint dark circles under his blue eyes. He looked around, searching for Elena. She was behind the counter, her back to the entrance, arranging clean glasses on the shelves. Her blonde hair was in the same low bun, and she was humming softly, unaware of his presence. Spencer hesitated before approaching. He hadn't planned to come back so soon, or maybe he had, but he didn't want to admit it to himself. The truth was, the image of Elena hadn't left his mind since they left the diner 2 days ago. The way she had treated Sophie, The genuine emotion when she received the drawing, the kindness in her eyes. He sat on a stool at the counter, placing his leather briefcase beside him. Eleanor turned at the sound of the movement, and for a moment her eyes widened in surprise. "Mr. Davis," she said, and then smiled. "I didn't expect to see you again so soon." "Spencer," he corrected, feeling strangely formal. "Please, call me Spencer." Elena nodded, picking up a laminated menu. "Spencer, did Sophie not come with you today?" "No, she's at home with the nanny. I had a long day at the office." He waved the menu away. "Just a coffee, please, black." Elena put the menu back and turned to get the thermal coffee pot. As she poured the steaming drink into a white mug with the diner's red logo, she asked, "How is Sophie?" "Good," Spencer replied, taking the cup. "She won't stop talking about you. The drawing you gave her is on her bedroom wall now." Elena smiled, surprised. "I gave her a drawing?" "Yes." "I don't know if you remember, but before we left, you took a napkin and drew Mr. Cuddles wearing a crown." Spencer smiled at the memory. "She said he's King Cuddles now." Elena laughed, a soft and genuine sound. "I had forgotten about that. Sophie is a special child." "Yes, she is," Spencer agreed, taking a sip of the coffee. It was surprisingly good, strong and fresh. Nothing like the expensive but tasteless coffee his secretary brought in paper cups all day. "Look, actually, I came for another reason." He placed the cup on the counter and opened his briefcase, taking out a white envelope. "I wanted to give you this, as a thank you for taking care of Sophie at the mall." Eleanor looked at the envelope, immediately understanding what it was. Her smile faded, replaced by an expression Spencer couldn't quite interpret. Surprise, maybe even a little disappointment. "That's not necessary," she said, not taking the envelope. Really? Please," Spencer insisted, pushing the envelope toward her. "It's just a token of my appreciation." Elena gently crossed her arms. "I did what was right, what any decent person would do. I don't need a reward for that." Something in the quiet firmness with which she refused the money made Spencer feel small, almost ashamed. He put the envelope back in his briefcase, feeling his face grow warm. "I'm sorry," he murmured. "I didn't mean to offend." Eleanor's expression softened. "You didn't. It's just, that's not why I helped Sophie." She picked up a cloth and started wiping the already clean counter, just to have something to do with her hands. "How are you doing?" "After the scare, I mean." The question caught Spencer by surprise. No one asked him how he was, not really. They asked about business, about results, about the next big deal, but not about him, Spencer, the man, the father. "It's been hard," he admitted, and the honesty of his own answer surprised him. "I keep thinking about what could have happened. If she had run into the wrong person, or if she had gone toward the mall exit." He couldn't finish the sentence. The lump in his throat was too big. "But it didn't happen," Elena said gently, stopping her cleaning to look him in the eyes. "She's safe. And you learned something important." "What?" "That sometimes the most important things are the ones right in front of you, not the ones on your phone." Spencer looked at her, surprised by her frankness. He wasn't used to people being so direct with him. In his world, everyone agreed, flattered, said what they thought he wanted to hear. "So aren't you always this honest?" he asked with a half smile. Elena shrugged, a light blush coloring her cheeks. "Sorry, I didn't mean to be nosy." No. I like it. It's refreshing." A moment of silence settled between them. Not exactly uncomfortable, but filled with something indefinable. Eleanor went back to arranging glasses, and Spencer watched the movement of her hands, agile, careful, with short, unpolished nails. "How do you do it?" he asked suddenly. "How do I do what? How do you know what to say to a crying child? How did you know exactly what Sophie needed in that moment?" Elena paused what she was doing, thoughtful. "I can't explain it. Maybe because I remember what it's like to be a kid and be scared, or maybe because I had to grow up taking care of my younger siblings when my mom got sick." "You have siblings?" "Two. Lucas is in college now, on a full scholarship, and Maria just started high school." Pride was evident in her voice. Spencer realized he knew almost nothing about her, while she seemed to read him like an open book. "You seem close," he commented. "We are. We always have been. We had to be." She smiled, but there was a shadow of sadness in her eyes. "What about you? Do you have siblings?" "An older brother. He lives in Europe, manages the company's branch there. We don't see each other much." Eleanor nodded, as if that explained something about Spencer she already suspected. "So Sophie is an only child?" "Yes." "That must be hard for her." "How so?" Eleanor hesitated, as if choosing her words carefully. "Kids need connection, to feel like they belong to something bigger than themselves. When they don't have siblings, that connection has to come from the parents." Spencer felt the weight of those words. Was he failing at this too? How many times a week did he spend quality time with Sophie? Real time, without distractions, without a phone, without thinking about work. As if reading his thoughts, Eleanor continued, "She needs time with you, just you. Not with a nanny, not with a screen, just presence." The simplicity of those words hit Spencer with surprising force. Presence. It was something he rarely offered, to anyone, really. His mind was always somewhere else, on the next problem, the next solution, the next deal. "It's not that simple," he said, more to himself than to Elena. "Actually, it's exactly that simple," she replied sweetly, with no judgment in her voice. "It might not be easy, but it's simple. Kids don't need expensive toys or extravagant trips. They need to feel seen, heard, loved not for what they might become, but for who they already are." Spencer looked at her, really looked, and wondered how someone who seemed so young could be so wise. There was a calmness about her, an acceptance of life that he, with all his money and power, had never achieved. "How do you know so much about this?" he asked. Eleanor gave a small, sad smile. "Son, I learned the hard way. My mom worked 3 jobs to support us. We hardly ever saw her. She did the best she could, but we always felt her absence, even when she was physically present." Spencer looked down at his coffee cup, now almost empty. He thought of Sophie waiting for him every night, asking Mrs. Miller what time her daddy would be home. He thought of the times he had promised to be at her school performances and cancelled at the last minute. "I'm not judging," Elena added quickly. "I know it's hard. You're a widower. You have a company to run. You're doing the best you can." "No," Spencer shook his head. "You're right. I could do more. I should do more." A thoughtful silence fell between them. Spencer finished his coffee, and Elena didn't rush to refill it, respecting his moment of introspection. "Sophie asked to go to the park on Saturday," he said finally. "She's been asking for months. I always say I'm busy." "And are you?" "I'm always busy," he replied with a sigh. "But maybe this time I don't have to be." Elena smiled, and it was as if the sun had entered the diner even though it was night outside. "I'm sure she would love that." Spencer nodded, feeling something shift inside him. A new determination, a clarity he hadn't felt in years. "Thank you," he said, leaving a generous tip under the empty cup. "For the coffee. And for the advice." "It was my pleasure," she replied. "And Spencer." "Yes? Don't be so hard on yourself. You're trying. That's more than many people do." As he walked back to his car, Spencer thought about Elena's words. Presence. So simple and so difficult at the same time. But maybe, just maybe, he could start to change, one day at a time. Starting with a Saturday at the park with his daughter. "Are you sure about this, Mr. Davis?" The voice of Marianne, his secretary, sounded genuinely confused over the phone. "The meeting with the Chinese investors has been scheduled for months. Mr. Chen came all the way from Shanghai to cancel it," Spencer repeated, his voice firmer than usual, but not rude. "Or rather, ask Jim to fill in for me. He knows the numbers as well as I do." "But sir—" "Marianne," Spencer interrupted gently, "I'm taking the day off to be with my daughter. It's the first time I don't even remember when. Please." There was a brief silence on the other end of the line, followed by a sigh of surrender. "Of course, Mr. Davis. I'll rearrange your schedule. I wish you and Sophie a wonderful day." "Thank you, Marianne." Spencer hung up the phone and stared at it for a moment. Then, making a decision, he opened his nightstand drawer and put it inside. Today would be a day without calls, without emails, without urgent meetings, a day just for Sophie. It was only 7 in the morning when he gently knocked on his daughter's bedroom door. Normally, at this hour, he would already be in the car on his way to the office after giving a quick kiss to Sophie's forehead while she was still asleep. "Sophie, are you awake, princess?" He opened the door slowly. The room was dim, with only the soft light from the star-shaped nightlight. Sophie was sitting up in bed, already dressed, her blonde hair disheveled, hugging Mr. Cuddles. Her blue eyes widened in surprise when she saw her father. "Daddy, you didn't go to work?" The simple question made Spencer feel a pang of guilt. It was so unusual for him to be home at this hour that his own daughter found it strange. "No, princess, I'm not going to work today." He sat on the edge of the bed. "Today is a special day, a day just for us." Sophie looked at him suspiciously, as if afraid it was some kind of joke. "Really? For real?" Spencer held out his pinky finger. "Pinky promise?" Sophie's face lit up as she linked her small finger with her father's. "What are we going to do?" "Whatever you want. I was thinking we could start with pancakes for breakfast. Then we can go to the park." "The big park? With the duck pond?" "That's the one." Sophie jumped out of bed with a leap, almost knocking her father over. "Yay!" "Can I bring bread for the ducks? Mrs. Miller said they like bread." Spencer laughed. "Of course you can. Now come on, let's go make those pancakes." In the spacious and modern kitchen, which he rarely used, Spencer found himself in a mess of flour, eggs, and milk. He was not a skilled cook. Since Rebecca's death, the food at home was prepared by Mrs. Miller or delivered from expensive restaurants, but today was different. "I think we put in too much flour," he said, looking at the thick batter in the bowl. Sophie, sitting on a high stool with flour on her nose and cheeks, shook her head seriously. "Elena said the batter has to be thin like a blanket." Spencer raised an eyebrow, surprised. "Eleanor taught you how to make pancakes?" Sophie nodded excitedly. "Yes, the other day when we went there again after you left. She let me help make pancakes for the customers." "Did she?" Spencer didn't know Sophie had returned to the diner. Mrs. Miller had probably taken her during an outing. "And what else did Elena teach you?" "She said the secret to pancakes is to put a little bit of love in the batter." Sophie stuck her finger in the bowl and stirred. "There, now it has love," Spencer laughed, feeling a strange warmth in his chest. "Well, in that case, they're going to be delicious." Surprisingly, the pancakes turned out well, not perfect, some burnt at the edges, others a bit raw in the middle. But Sophie declared them the best pancakes in the whole wide world, and that was all that mattered. After breakfast, they got ready to leave. The day was perfect. Blue sky, bright sun, pleasant temperature. Spencer grabbed a bag and filled it with water bottles, some snacks, a blanket to sit on the grass, and the bread for the ducks that Sophie had insisted on bringing. "Don't forget Mr. Cuddles," Sophie yelled, running down the hallway with the bear. "Never," Spencer promised, holding the door open. In the car, Sophie chattered non-stop about what they would do at the park, her eyes shining with excitement. Spencer wondered when was the last time he had seen her so animated. He realized with sadness that he didn't know the answer. Arriving at the park, Sophie barely waited for the car to stop before trying to unbuckle her seatbelt. "Easy, princess," Spencer laughed, turning off the engine. "The park isn't going anywhere." They walked hand in hand along the stone path, Sophie skipping and stopping every few steps to look at a flower, a butterfly, a squirrel scampering through the trees. Spencer forced himself to slow down, not to rush her, to simply enjoy the moment. It was harder than it seemed. Years of timed meetings and tight deadlines had programmed his brain to always seek efficiency. "Look, Daddy. Look at that huge tree. Wow, it really is giant. Can we climb it?" Spencer hesitated. His first instinct was to say no, it was dangerous. She could get hurt, her clothes would get dirty. But then he remembered Elena's words. "She needs time with you, just you, not with a nanny, not with a screen. Just presence." "You know what? Let's do it. I'll help you up." Sophie's expression was one of pure surprise, followed by a joy so intense that Spencer felt his eyes sting. When had it become so rare for him to say yes to her small wishes? He lifted her to the first branch, holding her firmly as she balanced herself. Then he climbed up too, sitting next to her. They didn't go very high. Spencer was still cautious, but high enough for Sophie to feel the thrill of accomplishment. "We're so high," she exclaimed, looking around. "Daddy, do you think the birds can see our house from here?" Spencer smiled. "Maybe the ones that fly really high. And Elena's house, can we see it too?" I don't know where Elena lives, Princess. She lives in a small apartment near the diner. She told me." Again, Spencer was surprised by how much Sophie knew about Elena. It seemed they had developed a closer relationship than he had imagined. "What else did Elena tell you?" he asked, genuinely curious. Sophie thought for a moment, swinging her little legs in the air. "She taught me a cool game." "Want to see?" "Sure. Close your eyes and tell me 5 things you can hear." Spencer frowned, confused, but obeyed. He closed his eyes and concentrated. The wind in the leaves. Birds singing. Children playing in the distance. Water. Must be the lake, and you're breathing. "Very good," Sophie applauded. "Now, 5 things you can feel without looking." Spencer smiled, understanding the game. "The branch under me, the wind on my face, the sun warming my arms, my shirt against my skin, and—" He reached out and held Sophie's hand. "Your little hand in mine." Sophie laughed, delighted. "This game is cool because it makes us pay attention to things. Elena said grown-ups forget to do that." "Elena is right," Spencer admitted, opening his eyes and looking at his daughter, really looking at her, observing the details of her face, the sparkle in her eyes, the smile that revealed the gap from the baby teeth that were starting to fall out. "We forget to pay attention to the important things." They spent hours at the park. They fed the ducks, though an employee kindly informed them that seeds were better than bread, had a picnic on the grass, played frisbee. Spencer was surprisingly bad at it, and Sophie convinced her dad to play tag, making him run more than he had in years. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in orange hues, they were sitting on a bench near the playground, eating ice cream. Sophie had chocolate dripping down her chin, and Spencer didn't even bother to wipe it. Not today. "Daddy!" she called, licking the plastic spoon. "Yes, Princess. Today was the best day." 4 simple words, but they hit Spencer like a lightning bolt. The best day, not a good day, not a nice day, the best day, and all he had done was be present. No expensive gifts, no extravagant trips, nothing but his complete attention. "For me too, Sophie," he replied, his throat tightening. "For me too, it was the best day." Sophie snuggled up beside him, resting her head on his arm. "Can we do it again?" "Of course, we can." "Promise." Spencer looked at his daughter, so small, so confident that her father would keep his word. How many promises had he already broken? How many later Princess had turned into never? "Sign, I promise," he said, with a conviction he hadn't felt in a long time. "Every Saturday will be our day, just ours." On the way back home, Sophie fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted from the day's adventures. Spencer watched her in the rearview mirror, his heart overflowing with love and, yes, regret. He had missed so many precious moments, so many possible best days. But today had been a start, and thanks to a kind-eyed waitress who had the courage to tell him the truth he needed to hear, Spencer now knew he could still make up for lost time. One day at a time, one laugh at a time, one present moment at a time. After the day at the park with Sophie, something changed in Spencer. The genuine connection with his daughter had awakened a side of him that had been dormant since Rebecca's death. The following week, he reorganized his schedule, delegated projects, and came home earlier. Sophie's face would light up every time he showed up for dinner. And then there was Elena. Spencer found himself thinking about her at the most unexpected times, during meetings, in traffic, before falling asleep. There was something about her, an authenticity, an unpretentious kindness that drew him in a way he hadn't felt in years. That's why on a Tuesday night, after putting Sophie to bed, he drove to the Red Cup diner. Elena's shift was almost over. The diner was nearly empty at that hour, just a couple in the corner and a lone man reading a newspaper. Elena was cleaning the counter when he walked in. She looked up, and Spencer saw surprise in her eyes. 2 visits in 1 week, she commented with a small smile. So should I be worried about Sophie's tab at the end of the month? Spencer laughed, sitting on a high stool at the counter. Actually, I came to thank you. Thank me. For the advice. About Sophie. I spent the whole day with her on Saturday. Eleanor smiled, her eyes softening. And how was it? Incredible. Spencer couldn't help the smile that spread across his face. She said it was the best day. That's wonderful. Elena seemed genuinely happy for him. We played that game you taught her. The one about closing your eyes and noticing the sounds, the sensations. Oh yes, it's a form of mindfulness. I learned it from my therapist. She blushed slightly. Sorry, I shouldn't have mentioned that. Why? There's nothing wrong with going to therapy. Some people think it's a sign of weakness. Some people are wrong. Spencer watched her for a moment. Can I buy you a coffee after your shift? Elena hesitated. My shift ends in 20 minutes. I'll wait. 20 minutes later, they were sitting in a small, cozy coffee shop 2 blocks from the diner. Eleanor had changed out of her uniform into jeans and a simple blouse, her blonde hair now down. So, she said, wrapping her hands around her tea mug, how is Sophie? Good. She won't stop talking about you. I think she has a new hero. Elena smiled, but there was a hint of sadness in her eyes. She's a special kid. Yes, she is. Spencer hesitated before asking, and you, how are you? The question seemed to catch her by surprise. Me, I'm fine. As always. Does as always mean fine? Elena stared at him for a moment, as if deciding how honest she could be. So not always, but today, yes, I'm fine. They sat in silence for a few moments, sipping their drinks. There was a tension in the air, not necessarily unpleasant, but charged with expectation. Do you remember our first conversation at the diner? Spencer finally asked. You mentioned your mother, said she worked 3 jobs. Eleanor nodded. Yes. After my father left us, she had to support 3 kids on her own. She worked as a cleaner in the morning, a saleswoman in the afternoon, and sometimes a waitress at night, like me. That must have been hard. It was. But she was strong. She is strong. Elena looked out the window. She's still fighting. She was diagnosed with cancer 2 years ago. That's why I started therapy, to deal with everything. Spencer felt a wave of admiration for this woman who spoke of her pain without drama, with a quiet dignity. I'm sorry about your mom, he said sincerely. How is she now? In remission, thank God, but the treatment was expensive. We're still paying off the bills. Spencer felt an urge to offer financial help but held back. He had already learned that Elena wouldn't easily accept that kind of assistance. And you? She asked, shifting the focus of the conversation. Sophie told me about your wife. I'm so sorry. Spencer swallowed hard. It was rare to talk about Rebecca. The people around him avoided the subject. Rebecca, he said, the name sounding strange on his lips. It's been 3 years. Cancer, too, ironically. It was fast. We found out too late. Sophie was very little. 2 years old. Sometimes I wonder if she really remembers her mother, or if she just recognizes the photos. Eleanor reached out and briefly touched his hand, a gesture of solidarity that lasted only a second, but that Spencer felt as a warmth spreading through his body. Is that why you buried yourself in work? She asked gently. The question was direct, but there was no judgment in it. Spencer thought for a moment. Partly, it was easier to deal with numbers, contracts, deadlines than with feelings. He paused. And partly because it's what I've always done. Work always came first. Rebecca used to complain about it. She said I lived on autopilot. And now? Now I realize she was right. And that I'm doing the same thing with Sophie. He gave a sad smile. It took a stranger finding me at the mall to give me a reality check. Eleanor smiled. It wasn't exactly a slap. A gentle push, then. They laughed, and something in the air between them shifted. It became lighter, warmer. They continued talking for over an hour, sharing stories, discovering little things about each other. When they finally left the coffee shop, the night was cold. Spencer offered her his jacket, which Eleanor politely refused. Can I give you a ride? He asked. No need. I only live a few blocks from here. Then can I walk you? It's getting late. Elena hesitated but eventually agreed. They walked side by side through the quiet streets. This is it, she finally said, stopping in front of an old but well-maintained building. Apartment 3B. Thanks for walking me, Elena said. It was nice. It really was, Spencer agreed, feeling an almost irresistible urge to touch her. But there was something in her posture, a slight reservation that stopped him. Can we do this again sometime? Elena looked at him for a long moment. Maybe, she finally replied. Good night, Spencer. Good night, Elena. The next day, Elena was serving breakfast when her colleague, Darlene, approached. Who was the handsome guy in the suit who waited for you last night? She asked in a low voice. Elena felt her face flush. A customer. A customer who waits for you until the end of your shift. Right. Darlene raised her eyebrows suggestively. I saw you leaving together. We just went for coffee. Coffee with the father of that little girl, right? The billionaire from Davis Enterprises. Elena froze. How do you know who he is? Darlene shrugged. Everyone in this city knows who Spencer Davis is. The guy's on the business pages all the time. She looked at Elena with concern. Be careful, honey. Rich men don't stick with people like us. They play on have fun and then go back to their world. It's not like that, Elena protested, feeling a discomfort grow in her chest. He's just a customer whose daughter I helped once. If you say so, Darlene patted her shoulder. I just don't want to see you get hurt. I've seen this movie before. It never ends well for the waitress. Elena wanted to protest more, to say that Spencer was different, that he wasn't the stereotype of the rich, arrogant executive. But Darlene's words had touched on an insecurity she didn't even know she had. In the days that followed, Elena found herself waiting for Spencer to show up at the diner. Every time the door's bell jingled, she would look up hopefully, only to feel a pang of disappointment when it was just another customer. One day turned into 2, then 3, then a whole week. There was no sign of Spencer or Sophie. Elena got angry with herself for missing them, for missing him. She had been foolish to believe that the connection she felt was anything more than fleeting gratitude. Rich men don't stick with people like us, Darlene's words echoed in her mind, mixing with her own insecurities. It was true, wasn't it? What could she offer someone like Spencer? He lived in a world of private jets, board meetings, and vacation homes. She could barely pay the rent on her small apartment and help with her mother's medical bills. On the 10th day with no news, Elena had come to terms with it. That's why, when the bell jingled at 9:43 a.m. and Spencer walked into the restaurant, she almost dropped the tray she was carrying. He looked the same as always, impeccably dressed, hair combed back, that aura of confidence that only money and power can bestow. But there was something different in his eyes when he saw her. Something vulnerable. Good morning, he said, sitting at an empty table by the window. Could you bring me a coffee, please? The formality hurt more than Elena expected. She nodded professionally and went to get the coffee, trying to calm her racing heart. When she returned, she placed the cup on the table without looking directly at him. Anything else? Eleanor, Spencer said softly, can we talk when you have a moment? She finally faced him. I'm working. I know. I'm sorry. I can wait. There was sincerity in his voice, and Elena felt her resolve waver. Part of her wanted to sit down and hear what he had to say. Another part, the part that had been hurt so many times before, wanted to protect her heart. My break is in 20 minutes, she said finally. 20 minutes later, Elena sat down at his table, still wearing her uniform apron. The restaurant was relatively empty, and Darlene had shot her a warning glance as she headed to Spencer's table. How are you? He asked. Fine, she answered automatically. And you? And Sophie? We're fine. Sophie asks about you. He paused. I've missed you too. The words hung between them, loaded with unsaid meanings. Elena felt her heart race, but Darlene's words and her own insecurities were stronger. Why did you disappear? She asked, unable to completely hide the hurt in her voice. Spencer seemed surprised by the directness of the question. I had to travel for business, Shanghai. It was unexpected. For 10 days. Yes, I'm sorry, I should have let you know, or something. He ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of nervousness. I didn't think you'd notice I was gone. Elena looked down at her hands. Of course he wouldn't think that. Why would he? She was just the waitress who helped his daughter. Spencer, She took a deep breath, gathering her courage. I think it's better if we don't see each other anymore. The words came out harsher than she intended. She saw his expression change from surprise to confusion, then to something that looked like pain. Can I ask why? He finally said, his voice controlled. Elena wanted to say everything. That she was afraid of getting attached to someone who lived in such a different world. That she couldn't bear to be just a pastime for him. That Darlene's words had touched her deepest insecurities. But instead, she just said, "We're from different worlds, Aunt Spencer. It has no future." Spencer was silent for a long moment, as if processing her words. Eleanor couldn't look at him, afraid of what she would see in his eyes. "I see," he said at last, his voice low. "I respect your decision." He left a few bills on the table, much more than the coffee cost, and stood up. For an instant, it seemed like he was going to say something else, but then he simply nodded and turned to leave. Eleanor watched him cross the diner and exit through the door, the bell jingling with his departure. She felt a lump in her throat and a tightness in her chest that she couldn't explain. "It's for the best," she muttered to herself, but the words sounded hollow even to her own ears. Spencer got into his car and sat for a long time, looking at the diner through the windshield. He didn't fully understand what had happened, what had changed, but he felt like he had just lost something precious before he had even truly found it. With a heavy sigh, he started the engine and drove away from the Red Cup diner, not knowing if he would ever return. 3 days had passed since Eleanor told Spencer they shouldn't see each other anymore. 3 days of pretending everything was fine, of smiling at customers at the diner, of ignoring Darlene's concerned looks. 3 days of trying not to think about the blue-eyed billionaire and his little blonde daughter who had entered her life so unexpectedly. Eleanor was placing freshly baked pies in the display case when the door's bell jingled. It was almost the end of her shift, the restaurant nearly empty except for an elderly couple in the corner and a man reading a newspaper at the counter. She turned, the welcoming words already on her lips, and there he was, Spencer, no suit this time, just jeans and a blue shirt that enhanced his eyes. He looked different, less of an executive, more human. "Hi," he said simply, standing at the entrance as if waiting for permission to approach. Elena felt her heart race. "Hi. Can I sit?" He pointed to an empty table near the window. Elena hesitated, but nodded. "Sure, we're about to close, but I know I won't be long." She watched him as he walked to the table. There was something different in his posture, a tension in his shoulders she hadn't noticed before. Spencer looked vulnerable. It wasn't a word she would associate with a man who ran a financial empire. Elena grabbed her notepad and approached, trying to maintain a professional demeanor. "What can I get you?" Spencer looked at her for a long moment before answering. "Nothing. I just need to talk to you." "Spencer, I already told you." "Please," he interrupted softly. 5 minutes. That's all I ask." There was a sincerity in his eyes that made Eleanor hesitate. She glanced at the clock on the wall, 20 minutes left until the end of her shift. "Let me finish setting up the display case. We can talk after." Spencer nodded. "Thank you." Elena went back behind the counter, trying to control the tremor in her hands as she arranged the pies. Why had he come back? What else needed to be said? She had been clear. They didn't belong in the same world. A relationship between them was a fantasy, a story that wouldn't work out. "Are you okay?" Darlene whispered, appearing beside her. "The rich guy is back." "I'm fine. He just wants to talk." Darlene frowned. "Do you want me to stay until you're done?" Elena shook her head. "No need. I can handle this." "Be careful." Darlene squeezed her arm gently before walking away. When the last customer left and Darlene finished her shift, Elena finally approached Spencer's table. She sat across from him, keeping her hands in her lap to hide how they were shaking. "Your 5 minutes," she said, trying to sound firmer than she felt. Spencer looked her directly in the eyes. "You've changed. Tell me what happened." The directness of the question caught her by surprise. She had expected him to try to convince her, to talk about Sophie, anything but this direct confrontation. "I told you, we're from different worlds. It has no future," she repeated, the same word she had used days ago. "That's what you said. It's not the why." Spencer leaned forward. "A week ago, we were having coffee together, talking for hours. You told me about your mum. I told you about Rebecca. There was a connection there, Elena. We both felt it." Elena looked away, unable to face the intensity in his eyes. "Connections aren't always enough." "Was it something I did? Something I said?" "No." "Then what?" "Was it because I disappeared for 10 days? I should have told you." "I know, but I didn't know." "I didn't think that I would notice," Eleanor completed, a hint of bitterness in her voice. "Why would you, right? I'm just the waitress who helped your daughter once." Spencer looked genuinely confused. "You know that's not how I see you." "How do you see me then? What is this to you, Spencer? A hobby? A distraction? An interesting story to tell your executive friends? Hey, I met this nice waitress the other day." He recoiled as if he'd been slapped. "Where is this coming from?" Elena took a deep breath, trying to organize her thoughts. "You don't understand, Spencer. You live in a mansion. I share a tiny apartment with a roommate to make rent and help my mum. You fly to Shanghai for business meetings. I've never left the country. You have an assistant who organizes your life. I have double shifts when I need extra money. So what? So what? Do you really not see it? We don't belong in the same world. These differences are real." Spencer was silent for a moment, as if processing what she was saying. When he spoke again, his voice was soft but firm. "You made me see that family comes before everything. More than money, more than status." He paused, his blue eyes fixed on hers. "Sophie and I like you. She asks about you every day." Eleanor felt a lump form in her throat. Sophie. Little Sophie with her blonde curls and her teddy bear. The girl who had drawn the three of them together, holding hands under a smiling sun. "Spencer, don't use your daughter." "I'm not using anyone," he interrupted gently. "I'm telling you the truth. Sophie misses you. And so do I." Eleanor felt her eyes sting with unshed tears. How had things come to this? When had she allowed this man and his daughter so deep into her heart? "Someone told you something, didn't they?" Spencer asked suddenly. Elena looked at him, surprised. "Someone said something to you about me, about us," he continued. "Was that what changed?" She hesitated. "Darlene, my colleague. She was just worried about me." "What did she say?" Elena looked away. "So rich men don't stick with people like us," she quoted in a low voice. "She said men like you have their fun and then go back to their own world." Spencer closed his eyes for a moment, as if that had physically hurt him. When he opened them again, there was a renewed determination in them. "Look at me, Elena," he asked softly. When she met his gaze, he continued, "I have never been as honest with anyone as I have been with you. I have never felt so myself with anyone since Rebecca. You have no idea how much you've changed my life in such a short time." "Spencer." "No. Let me finish." He reached his hand across the table, not touching hers, but leaving it there, like an invitation. "I know our lives are different. I know I come from a world of privilege that you never had, but since Rebecca died, all this money, all these things, they mean nothing. They're just things. What matters, what really matters, is what you helped me rediscover. Connection, presence, family." Elena felt a tear escape and slide down her cheek. Spencer continued, his voice thick with restrained emotion. "You changed the way I see my own life, how I am as a father, how I am as a man. You did that not because you're a waitress or because you have money or don't. You did it because of who you are, because you have the courage to tell a stranger the truth, because you genuinely care about a little girl lost in the mall, Because you see what's important. He finally extended his hand completely, touching hers gently. I'm not here for a hobby or a distraction. I'm here because, somehow, in a few weeks, you've become important to me. To us. Elena looked at their hands together. There was so much at stake, so many risks. And yet, have dinner with us tomorrow night, Spencer said. At my house. Nothing formal, just me, you and Sophie. No pressure, no expectations, just to see where this goes. Elena hesitated. All her insecurities were still there, whispering in her ear. But there was something stronger now, something that felt like hope. I don't know, Spencer. Just one dinner, he repeated softly. If after that you still think we have no future, I will respect it, I promise. Eleanor looked at him, at the sincerity in his eyes, at the vulnerability he no longer tried to hide. This wasn't the powerful executive, the untouchable billionaire. This was just a man, a father, asking for a chance. Okay, she said finally. One dinner. The smile that lit up Spencer's face made her heart leap. Can I pick you up at 6? I can get a cab. Please, let me pick you up. Eleanor nodded, surrendering. 6 o'clock, then. When Spencer left the diner, Eleanor remained seated for a long time, trying to process what had happened. Was she making a mistake? Or for the first time in a long time, was she giving happiness a chance? At 6 o'clock the next evening, Eleanor was waiting in front of her building. She had changed her clothes 5 times before settling on a simple light blue dress, nothing too elaborate, but nice enough for dinner. Her blonde hair was down, falling in soft waves over her shoulders. When Spencer's car pulled up to the curb, she felt her heart race. He got out and walked over to her, a warm smile on his face. You look beautiful, he said simply. Thank you, she replied, feeling inexplicably shy. You look nice too. Spencer's house, or rather mansion, was exactly as Elena had imagined. Large, elegant, with a perfectly manicured garden and an imposing entrance. Still, there was something surprisingly welcoming about it. Maybe it was the warm lights in the windows, or Sophie's toys discreetly visible on the side lawn. It's not much, but it's home, Spencer joked, clearly trying to ease any discomfort she might feel. Eleanor smiled. Gus, it's a little bigger than my apartment. Just a little, he laughed. Before Spencer could open the door, it swung wide open. Sophie stood there, her blonde curls bouncing, clutching Mr. Cuddles to her chest. Her blue eyes widened with joy when she saw Elena. Elena, she shouted, running outside and throwing herself into the woman's arms. You came. You really came. The impact almost knocked Elena over, but she recovered in time, crouching to hug the little girl. Of course I came, Princess. I promised, didn't I? Sophie pulled back just enough to look her in the eyes. Mr. Cuddles missed you. I did too. I missed you too, sweetie. Sophie took her hand. Say, come on, come see what I made for you. Elena shot an amused look at Spencer, who just shrugged with a smile, as if to say, what can I do? She let herself be led into the house by the enthusiastic little girl. The dinner was surprisingly relaxed. Spencer had cooked, something he admitted he didn't do often but wanted to try for the special occasion. The pasta was a bit sticky and the sauce a little salty, but Eleanor didn't mind. There was a genuine joy at that table in the stories they shared, in Sophie's laughter. After dinner, while Sophie showed Elena her collection of books upstairs, Spencer cleaned up the kitchen, trying to control the nervousness he felt. When they both came down, Sophie was already in her pajamas, ready for bed. Will you read me a story, Elena, please? Sophie begged, looking at her with those impossible-to-resist eyes. If your daddy says it's okay, Elena replied, looking at Spencer. Of course, he smiled. So I'll be down here when you're done. Elena accompanied Sophie to her room and read Where the Wild Things Are twice in a row, until the little girl finally fell asleep, hugging Mr. Cuddles. For a moment, Elena just watched her sleep, feeling a wave of affection that surprised her with its intensity. When she came downstairs, she found Spencer in the living room, 2 glasses of red wine on the coffee table. Is she asleep? He asked. Like an angel. Spencer offered Elena a glass, which she accepted, and sat on the sofa next to him. For a moment, they were silent, just enjoying the quiet and each other's company. "Thank you for coming," Spencer said finally. "It meant a lot to both of us." Elena smiled. "It was a wonderful evening." "But, no buts," she replied, surprising herself. "Just, it's all very new, very fast." Spencer nodded, understanding. "I know. And I don't want to rush anything. I just want the chance to find out if this can be something real." He looked at her with a vulnerability that moved Elena. This powerful man, who ran a gigantic company, who made decisions that affected thousands of people, was here, completely open, completely honest. "Will you be a part of our family?" he asked simply, without beating around the bush, without grand declarations. Just the truth. Elena felt her heart race. It was a huge question, loaded with meaning, possibilities, risks. But thinking of Sophie sleeping upstairs, looking at Spencer awaiting her answer with hope in his eyes, she felt a certainty she hadn't expected to feel. She smiled, a smile that spoke more than 1,000 words. A smile that said yes, that said I'm willing to try, that said maybe, just maybe, different worlds can meet and create something new, something beautiful, something real. And Spencer, seeing that smile, knew he had found his way back home. Autumn arrived, painting the garden trees in shades of gold and red. 3 months had passed since that night Elena had accepted, with a silent smile, to be part of Spencer and Sophie's family. 3 months of small changes that, added together, completely transformed their lives. At first, Elena only came on weekends. Then, she started spending a few nights during the week. Eventually, her clothes started appearing in Spencer's closet, her books on the living room shelves, her shampoo in the bathroom. The transition was so natural that no one could pinpoint the exact moment she stopped being a visitor and became part of the house, part of the family. On a Saturday morning, Spencer watched Elena and Sophie in the garden through the kitchen window. They were sitting on a plaid blanket, surrounded by colored pencils and paper. Sophie was drawing with concentration, her tongue peeking out the corner of her mouth in a gesture of absolute focus that always made Spencer smile. Eleanor was beside her, equally engrossed in her own drawing, her blonde hair carelessly tied up, a few rebellious strands framing her face. He made coffee and brought it out on a tray, along with some cookies Elena had baked the day before. "Snack time for the artists," he announced, sitting on the blanket with them. Sophie looked up, her blue eyes shining with excitement. "Look, Daddy, I'm drawing our family for the school mural." Spencer took the drawing she held out to him. It was the typical style of a nearly 6-year-old, simplified figures and vibrant colors, impossible proportions. But what caught his attention was the composition, 3 figures holding hands, smiling, under a big yellow sun. Now, however, there was something new. A house in the background with colorful flowers around it, and what appeared to be Mr. Cuddles sitting in a window. "It's beautiful, Princess," he said, feeling that familiar pressure in his chest, that emotion that still caught him by surprise sometimes. "Eleanor's is prettier," Sophie declared with conviction. "She knows how to draw for real." Eleanor laughed, shaking her head. "Yours is much more creative than mine, Sophie." Spencer peeked at Elena's drawing. A realistic portrait of Sophie hugging Mr. Cuddles, perfectly capturing the girl's dreamy expression. "You have a talent," he commented, genuinely impressed. "You never mentioned you could draw like this." Elena shrugged, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. "It was just a hobby in school. I never really had time to develop it." "Well, you have time now," Spencer said, handing her a cup of coffee. "We could set up a small studio for you in the spare room next to the library." "Spencer, you don't have to." "I know I don't have to. I want to." He smiled, kissing her softly. "Besides, Sophie clearly inherited her mother's artistic talent. It'll be good to have someone who really knows how to guide her." The mention of Rebecca no longer brought that sharp pain from before. Now, it was a calm acknowledgement, a memory that could be honored without dominating the present. Sophie nibbled on a cookie thoughtfully. "Can Elena teach me how to draw faces? I want to make a portrait of Grandma for her birthday." The grandma in question was Elena's mother, now in full remission from cancer. For the past few weeks, she had been visiting them on Sundays for lunch, another new ritual that had naturally integrated into the family's routine. "Of course I can, sweetie," Elena replied, tucking a strand of Sophie's hair behind her ear. "We can start after our snack." Spencer watched the interaction between the two, marveling as always at the ease of the bond they had formed. There was no tension, no forced attempts from Elena to win Sophie over, nor any resistance from the girl in accepting the new presence in her life. It was as if a space had been vacant just waiting to be filled, and Elena fit into it perfectly. His own professional life had changed drastically. Jim, his vice president, had taken on more responsibilities, allowing Spencer to delegate many of the tasks that once kept him at the office late. He still worked hard, that was in his DNA. But now he left promptly at 5, had dinner with his family every night, and kept weekends sacred, with rare exceptions. The company didn't collapse, as a part of him had secretly feared. In fact, it seemed to be running better than ever. Happier employees, clearer decisions, more productive meetings. As if the balance he found in his personal life had overflowed into his professional life. That night, after Sophie had gone to sleep, Spencer and Elena sat on the back porch, watching the stars with glasses of wine in their hands. A habit they had developed, this moment of shared quiet to end the day. "I got a call from Mrs. Miller today," Elena commented, referring to Sophie's former nanny, who was now enjoying her retirement in Florida. "How is she?" "Good. It seems her great niece is getting married. She wanted to know if we could go to the ceremony next month." Spencer noted that we could. So natural now, this thinking in terms of family, of a unit. "Of course we can. Sophie will love to see her, and we can take the opportunity to spend a few days at the beach afterward." Elena nodded, leaning her head on his shoulder. "It will be good for Sophie. She was very fond of Mrs. Miller. And Mrs. Miller of her. I remember how emotional she got when she met you the day she came to say goodbye. She told me later that she could finally retire in peace, knowing Sophie would be in good hands." Eleanor smiled, though Spencer couldn't see her face. "I still find myself thinking how everything changed so fast. 4 months ago, I was serving coffee and complaining about my sore feet after double shifts." "Regrets?" Spencer asked, though he already knew the answer. "Not for a second," she turned to look him in the eye. "But sometimes it feels like a dream. Like I'm going to wake up back in that tiny apartment, rushing not to be late for the diner." Spencer pulled her closer. "It's not a dream. It's real. We are real." "I know," she smiled. "By the way, I spoke with the management at the Red Cup today. They accepted my proposal to revamp the Kids' menu and create the Kids' Corner we discussed." Spencer smiled, proud. It had been Eleanor's idea to use some of the money they now had to improve the diner where she had worked for so long, creating opportunities for the employees and a better environment for families with children. That's wonderful. "When does the renovation start?" "Next month. Darlene is so excited she can't stop talking about it." Eleanor laughed. "Ironically, she thinks you did it all to impress me." Spencer raised his eyebrows. "The same Darlene who warned you about the dangers of rich men." "The very one. Now she thinks you're Prince Charming who saved the commoner waitress." They laughed together, comfortable with the irony of the situation. "Little does she know, you're the one who saved us," Spencer said, suddenly serious. "Sophie and me, we were existing, not living. You brought laughter back into this house." Elena touched his face gently. No words were needed. The following Sunday, the three of them were walking through the mall, the same one where it all began nearly 4 months ago. Sophie was between them, holding both of their hands, occasionally hopping with excitement as they passed the windows decorated for the approaching Christmas. "Can we see the little fish?" Sophie asked, pointing to the large decorative aquarium in the center of the mall. "Of course," Elena replied, letting herself be guided by the girl, while Sophie watched, fascinated, as the colorful fish swam in formation. Spencer and Elena stood a few steps back, arms linked, smiling at the child's boundless energy. "Just look at that blue one, Elena. It looks like Cinderella's dress." It's true, sweetie, very beautiful. Sophie turned to them, her eyes shining with joy. For a moment, she just watched them, as if she were noticing something important. Then, with the breathtaking sincerity that only children possess, she said, "We're a family now, right?" The question, so simple and yet so profound, caught Elena by surprise. She crouched down to Sophie's level, holding her small hands. "Yes, we are, my love," she replied, feeling emotion tighten her throat. Sophie smiled, satisfied with the answer, and turned her attention back to the fish. Eleanor stood up, meeting Spencer's gaze, those blue eyes she now knew so well, which she could read like an open book. He was smiling, a smile that spoke of gratitude, of love, of fulfilled promises, and of a future that finally no longer seemed scary or empty. They had found each other in the middle of the road, and now neither of them had to walk alone anymore. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ones. Leave a like because it helps this story get recommended to more people. See you in the next story.